Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I move that we reconvene this meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Commissioner Schiller seconds. Commissioner Staley? Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Soto?
Yes.
Commissioner Schiller? I vote yes. We are back. And we will start by taking continuances and withdrawals.
Uh, okay. So on page 7, 3525S,
Could you state your name and role for the record, please?
yes, Brian Gregory, assistant to the Alderman Ronnie Mosley.
And
Yes, so he is asking for a continuance on the case. The reason being is that when initially this case was brought forth, or we met with the developers here. It was brought to us when it was first placed on the agenda. And so we've been working with them, trying to get them connected with community partners as they've expressed a desire to hire locally. And so we've put them in contact with them, but we're waiting for them. We're waiting for the back and forth for them to have like a full concrete plan on how they're going to hire locally in the area, along with the alderman does want to meet with the owners. And so that's why we're seeking to ask for one more 1 month continuance.
counsel for the applicant, would you care to respond?
Yeah, absolutely. For the record, my name is Jimena Castro, partner at Acosta Esgar, here representing the applicant, and with me is also the applicant's manager. We decline the continuance. We would like to move forward with the case today. We have gone above and beyond in terms of reaching out to the community. We have contacted multiple beauty stores and reached out to 2 chambers of commerce. We have gone to, I believe it was Kinko's doesn't exist anymore, sorry, FedEx. We printed a large banner to put in front of the store, which I believe the ZBA has copies of. And we have done extensive outreach to hire locally. And we meet all of standards in the application, and we would like to move forward with the case today.
Yeah, a question for you. Is
Yes.
Do you have a position on whether the alderman's desire for you to hire locally, does that fit under any of the standards for the special use?
I don't believe it does not. And I know that we also have Nancy and Fernando here as well, who are very familiar with the standards. And as far as we know, we've met all of the standards. Local hiring is not part of the standards.
Okay. Any final words before we make a ruling?
Yeah, I would just say that, again, it's more about, yes, there has been some, not some, they have like presented an initial plan and we provided some feedback. And so what I was just saying is that we are looking for the partners that we're looking for them to speak to. Specifically, one has like a specific beauty school that they have. Another is a partner that is connected with cosmetology and nail tech students. And so, in their interest of also looking to be a partner with us in the alderman's office, that's why we're seeking to make sure we just have that plan. And that's why we're asking for the continuance.
All right, I'm gonna deny the request. I find that the issues that you're raising, while perhaps noble, it's not part of the zoning ordinance,
Right.
and it doesn't factor into the special use factors that we would consider. So I think if you want to reach out to the applicant further and discuss those issues, you certainly can, but it's just outside our purview. So for that reason, the request for a continuance, for a second continuance is denied, and we'll hear the case today.
Okay.
And we certainly, just for the record, will continue with our initiatives to hire locally. I think it's very noble, like you said, an altruistic collaboration with the alderman's office. We're not going away.
Right.
So we will continue the reach out.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
You can give it to the next person.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Agnes Pleca, page 8, top of page 8, in the spirit to make your Friday afternoon a little bit shorter, you know, I strive to please. I am withdrawing this case. Exclusa Enterprise, Inc., 3018-22 West North Avenue. Actually, Department of Planning and Development went beyond and above, help us resolve the site plan issues. Unfortunately, it came to our attention there are some building code issues which the applicant is not able to comply with the proposed expansion, so he decided to withdraw.
Okay, so calendar number 43324S is hereby withdrawn.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mark Kupiec, attorney for the applicant. The case is at the bottom of page 8, case number 514-24S, Revenge Salon, 200 East 75th Street. And the history, Mr. Chairman, this came before you first in December. Actually, we were there in December with our expert witness and we were ready to proceed. But on that occasion, the alderman asked for a continuance and you continued the case. I had asked for a 1-month continuance at that time, but it was continued 2 months until today. In the meantime, Alderman did organize a community meeting, which we attended, and we had that a week or two ago. However, today, my client is out of town with some plans that she could not reschedule. So I'd like to ask for a continuance and again, if possible, a 1-month continuance because we're otherwise ready to go except for her not being here.
Okay. Calendar number 51424S will be continued to April 18, the 2 p.m. call, and no further notice will be given.
Thank you.
Yes, Chairman, Nick Fatikas for the record, the bottom of page 8, it's 50924S, 20515 West 95th Street. This case was actually previously continued on our motion for continued community review with Alderman Beal's office. We're still working through that process, and we actually think that there might be a solution related to the design. I won't get into it today. I think we were advised on Tuesday that the alderman intended to request a continuance. I just wasn't comfortable making a second request, so we're not objecting if that is pending in front of you. Otherwise, we would ask for a second continuance to work through that remaining community process.
Okay. I don't think we have a request from the alderman's office for a continuance on this one. If we do, I haven't seen it.
I can double check emails that they had intended to request a continuance. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. If it makes
Sure.
it simple, Chairman, I'll ask for the second continuance as long as you understand the background.
Sure. I do understand and I appreciate it. So calendar number 50924S will be continued to April 18, the 2 p.m. call, and no further notice will be given.
Great. Thank you, sir.
So, all right, with that, let's call the first case, Victor. Okay, would everyone planning to testify please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in these proceedings?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. The board recognizes Mr. Poulos' expertise. I do have a recommendation from the department recommending approval of the proposed nail salon. Counselor, if you could provide a brief overview and introduce your witnesses.
Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Jimena Castro. I'm a partner at Acosta Esgar, here representing the applicant Kiera Nail Spa, LLC. To my right is the applicant's manager, Thean Nugent, and to his right is Peter Poulos, the appraiser. Thean, can you please state your name and business address for the record?
Hi, my first name is Tin Nguyen. My business address is 115 West 87th Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60620.
Thank you very much. Peter, can you state your name and business address?
Peter Poulos, Poulos. Address is at 230 West Monroe, Suite 2125, Chicago, Illinois, 60606.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the property is a B31 zoned lot. It is a one-story commercial building, which contains commercial uses, including a beauty supply store use. And the proposed space where we are planning to have the nail salon is a space that previously had a nail salon use. And we're just looking to reactivate that space with Thean's own company. And the area in general includes many beauty supply stores. So there is a overall need. People are coming to this particular area for their beauty supply needs, different stores, all of that. And there is a salon west and in a different shopping center to the proposed use, which is why the special use is triggered. My client, the manager, has over 10 years of experience in retail and in the commercial sectors, including in the beauty supply industry. And he also has approximately how many beauty salons? 9 beauty salons that they manage. So he has vast experience in the field. We are proposing for this particular use 5 nail techs to start, all Illinois licensed nail techs. The hours of operation would be Monday through Friday, 9 to 7 p.m., and Saturday and Sunday from 10 to 7 p.m. To start. And approximately at this time, we are proposing 58 spa chairs for pedicures and 36 tables for manicures. We've done, as you are aware, extensive community outreach. We've reached out to Sister Beauty Supply, Hollywood Beauty Supply, Beauty One Supply, the Chatham Business Association, the Greater Auburn Gresham Development Corporation, and a barber college as well, in order to advertise that we're hiring local. At this time, we also have, obviously, the appraiser who can speak about the use if needed, but we are seeking favorable consideration for this case, please.
Okay. For the witnesses, do both of you affirm that the materials submitted with the hearing packet are still true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Thank you. They will be admitted into the record. Are there any questions from the board? We will take this matter under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ah.
75 24Z, 266 24S, and 267 24Z, 4000 through Osis, West Jackson Boulevard.
Right in here? Okay. Thick one right there. Yep. That's a lot of.
I would say this is definitely a long time coming.
Yeah. As. All right. Would everyone planning to testify please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in these proceedings?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much, Counselor Powell. It's been a long time coming, but happy to see you here and ready to proceed today. If you could give us just a brief overview of your submission and introduce your witnesses.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Always a pleasure. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman Sanchez, and members of the board. For the record, my name is Louis Powell. I'm an attorney with offices at 53 West Jackson here in Chicago. Judge, here with me today I have to my immediate right going forward, Aetna Circle, represented by Dr. Thomas Huggett. Continue to the right, Glendale Christian Health Service, represented by Dr. James Brooks. Continuing to the right, Phoenix Recovery Services, represented by Mr. Gilbersley. And to the far right, Kareem Musterwer, our land use consultant planner. And to the end of the table, Audie, who is our architect. Good to see you all. Mr. Chairman, for the record, there are a total, this is for a proposed community center and transitional residential center use located at 4000 to 4006 West Jackson Boulevard in a B3-2 community shopping district. Furthermore, there is a total of 3 applicants for the 5 denials. And please note, Mr. Chairman, that Aetna Circle was the initial applicant of both the proposed community center and transitional residence uses. However, we were instructed during our zoning review process to make the operators of the proposed uses the respective applicants. Chairman Sanchez, with your permission, I would like to combine calendars 266-24-S, 267-24-S, 173-24-S, 174-24-3-S, and last, 175-24-Z, and present them as companion applicants.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The subject property is a 9,287.1 square foot lot, improved with 2 existing buildings, with a gravelled parking lot area at the rear of the buildings and 3,035 square feet unimproved grassy land, which will be an architecturally designed garden at the west end of the subject property. 4,000 West Jackson Boulevard is an existing 3-story building with basement brick mixed-use building and a 1-story portion at the rear of the building. And 4,002 West Jackson is an existing 2-story with basement brick residential building. Furthermore, Mr. Chairman, please note that a parking determination letter was issued by DPD dated March 21st, 2023. Per DPD, the applicant is required to provide 3 automobile parking spaces, 1 dedicated parking space for the companion fleet, company fleet vehicle, and 4 bicycle spaces. The owner of the property proposes to add 4 off-street parking spaces, 1 of which is ADA compliant and gated at the rear of the subject property, with access from the public alley and 4-space bicycle rack at the rear of the building. The initial applicant and owner of the property is Edna Circle, is a not-for-profit corporation which Dr. Thomas Huggett is the president of. Edna Circle is seeking approval of a variation application in order to reduce the required minimum rear setback for 4 floors containing dwelling units 30.0 feet to 25.0 feet in order to allow the construction of a 2nd and 3rd floor addition for a new rear enclosed staircase and an elevator and a real exterior on the existing 3-story mixed-use building. The applicant and property owners propose to renovate the 1,894 square feet first floor of existing 4,000 building for the proposed community center, use which will offer a variety of recovery and support services operated by Lawndale Christian Health Center. Which, Mr. Chairman, this brings us to applicant of denials one of 5, Lawndale Christian Health Center, which is also a non-for-profit corporation. The applicants represented by Dr. Brooks, who's here present with us. Furthermore, Lawndale Christian Health Center is seeking the approval of a special use application in order to allow the establishment of a proposed community center on the ground floor of the existing 3-story mixed-use building located at 4,000 West Boulevard. Also, as you mentioned previously, also Mr. Sterling Gilbenstein, who's the president of Phoenix Recovery Services, LLC, which is the applicant for denials 2, 3, and 4. Phoenix Recovery Services, LLC is seeking approval of 3 companion use applications in order to allow the establishment of a proposed transitional residence facility at 3 separate dwelling units. 2 will be located on the 2nd floor and the 3rd floor of the existing 3-story mixed-use building located at 4,000 West Boulevard, Jackson Boulevard. And 1 dwelling unit will be located at the existing 2-story residential building located at 4,002 West Boulevard. And we've already mentioned we have our land use planner, Mr. Musselwar. Mr. Chairman, we're available for further questions if you need to be.
Great, thank you. First of all, for all of the witnesses, do all of you affirm that the materials submitted with the hearing packet are still true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Those materials will be admitted into the record. Um, For for calendar number 17324S, this was the application to establish a community center on the ground floor. Which one of you is the applicant for this one? This would be Lawndale Christian Health Center.
James Brooks, Lawndale Christian Health Center.
Thank you, sir. Have you had an opportunity to review the Department of Planning and Development's recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, and do you agree to be bound by the conditions that were set forth in the letter?
Yes.
Thank you very much. How about, who is here on behalf of Phoenix Recovery Services? Oh, just point the microphone towards you.
Yes, Sterling Gildersleeve, that's myself, yes.
Okay, great. And have you had an opportunity to read the Department of Planning and Development's recommendation for calendar number 17424S? This was to establish a proposed transitional residence.
Yes, I have.
And do you agree to be bound by the conditions set forth in that letter?
Yes, indeed.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board?
Happy to see this moving forward.
I think we're all happy to see this moving forward. It's been a long time coming, but it's quite a project that you guys have, and I look forward to it. So with that, we'll take this matter under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board.
499-24Z, 4006 North Sheridan.
I know. But it really is.
All right, will everyone planning to testify, please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in these proceedings?
I do.
Thank you very much. The board recognizes Mr. O'Brien's expertise. Counselor, if you could give us a brief overview of the project and introduce your witnesses.
Great, thank you, sir. So again, for the record, Nick Fatikas from the Law Offices of Sam Banks. I'm here this afternoon on behalf of Catapult Real Estate Solutions LLC. The applicant is a contract to purchase the subject property at 4000 through 4006 North Sheridan Road. The subject site has 105 feet of frontage on North Sheridan Road and approximately 193 feet of frontage along West Irving Park. The subject property is a transit-served location that runs along the West Irving Park bus route and is within approximately 250 feet of the entrance to the Sheridan Road CTA station. The property is currently improved with a 3-story mixed-use building. The applicant is proposing to take down the existing building and develop the property with a new 7-story mixed-use building that'll contain 2,075 square feet of retail space at grade, 91 residential units above, and 38 off-street parking spaces. In order to permit the project, the applicant is seeking variations to waive the loading berth requirement and reduce the off-street parking requirement pursuant to TSL. The applicant is also seeking a special use to permit the layout of the building's proposed first floor. Although no residential units are proposed at grade level, the 2,075 square foot retail footprint is less than the code required 4,053 square foot retail unit. There will be 3 witnesses available to testify on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Paul Dinson, our project architect, Arden Freeman, and our MAI designated appraiser, Terry O'Brien. And Chairman, before I conclude, I do have just one matter of housekeeping. When we originally filed the applications, the plans reflected 92 residential units and 36 parking spaces. In working through the review process with the Alderman's office as well as the Uptown Development Partners, which is the local community organization, the applicant adjusted the programming to the currently proposed 91 residential units and 38 off-street parking spaces. The updated drawings were included with our finding of fact submittal. I just wanted to explain the difference between the original filing and where we landed with the final proposal. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions you or your board members have about the project.
Okay. For all of the witnesses, do all of you affirm that the materials submitted with the proposed findings of fact are still true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. They will be admitted into the record. I do have a recommendation from the Department of Planning and Development for calendar number 49724S. For the applicant, have you had the opportunity to review this letter?
Yes.
And do you agree to be bound by the conditions set forth in the letter?
Yes.
Great. The conditions are that I'll read the recommendation. The Department of Planning and Development recommends approval to establish residential use below the second floor of a proposed 7-story, 92 dwelling unit mixed-use building with 36 parking spaces, provided the development is consistent with the design and layout of the plans and drawings dated December 9, 2024, prepared by Built Form LLC. Are there any questions from the board?
Chairman, just one, in reviewing this with staff, I believe the staff recommendation calls out the 92 dwelling units and 36 parking spaces. So I just wanted to be able to amend it on the record that it's 91 residential units and 38 parking spaces. Again, those, the latter match the plans that were submitted with the findings of fact, and that's what's before the board today, consistent with what we've worked on with the alderman and the community group to this point.
All right, so we will amend the recommendation on the record to reflect that it's 91 dwelling units and 38 parking
Correct.
spaces. Okay.
Thank you.
Questions from the board?
Of course. I think also, so there were some emails that were submitted, and I just wanted to clarify some things in them. One, just for the record, I looked at, one of them was about whether it was a curb cut in Irving, and it's clear on the drawings that it's alley access. I just wanted that to be clear. That was the main one in terms of those questions. Oh, and the other was about the Hollywood Club. I know that. it's
Holiday
not-
Club,
Holiday Club.
Holiday, what did I say?
Hollywood.
So
Holiday Club.
we've spent, honestly, we've probably spent about 3 months working with the alderman's office as an intermediary in the Holiday Club. The issue is that in order for us to build our building, Holiday Club needs to relocate. I'm being a bad attorney here. We'd love to get Holiday Club to sign a lease now to come back in 2 years, but the business interruption is a real issue. We're welcoming Holiday Club back. It would require us to come back before the board for a special use because they do hold a tavern license, and the B3 zoning would require a reapproval or an approval for reestablishment of that use. So we have a ideal tenant in mind. We'd love to be able to bring them back, especially in today's market. But we're really kind of trying to give them flexibility. If they can find a 2-year home, less commitment and be able to come back, we welcome them with open arms. It's just the function of having to take the building down, having them relocate, and then whether or not they're going to want to relocate back. So it's an ongoing open conversation, and it sounds like, without putting words in anybody's mouth, we'd love to see it happen. It's just the reality of once they relocate,
Yeah.
are they going to want to?
And the space is there if they want to.
Yes.
So the other question, so I have a few, the other one is about affordability, but I have a few other questions first. In the current building, how many units are there?
It's approximately 36, I believe. They're
Okay.
kind of scattered. And if you're familiar with the building, which I'm sure you are, it has basically a first floor retail addition around a multi-unit building.
Which actually, before I go on, there are several there's a restaurant there. There's several other businesses there that have been there for a really long time. What's happening with them?
So all of them their leases will be honored. They just won't be renewed. So we're not displacing or kicking anybody out. I think we were talking with one tenant about possibly trying to buy them out of their lease. They have a right to it. So if it's something that we need to honor, we're going to honor it. There's no way around it.
Mm-hmm. What is the current units are all rental, correct?
Correct.
And what is the general rental range there now? It's
We're not
market
the
rate, right?
owner, so I can't speak to the current rents. I know that it's an older building. I know that there's no designated affordable or low-income housing trust fund units in the building
Right.
today. They're market rate
Right,
units.
but probably There was one of the comments in one of the emails, people were talking about there are people who can afford to live there, but probably wouldn't be able to afford to live in something else. So I'm wondering if you can expand on that difference, if you know.
So without knowing, we can't expand not knowing the exact rent rolls of the current building. Again, all of our projections are based on if the zoning's approved and if we're able to build and develop our new property or our building. What we have done in talking with and working with the Alderman's office specifically on this issue is attempt to work with the Low Income Housing Trust Fund to provide we don't have an identified number, a handful of units that would be Low Income Housing Trust Fund. It's not a legal requirement. It's not a condition of approval, but it's something as a good faith effort to try and solve for. Two of the concerns that come up with the Low Income Housing Trust Fund is first, they won't, as we understand it, will not approve occupancy until the building's delivered. So it's kind of a cart before the horse issue. And the second is the financing, whether or not they have the funds to provide housing offsets in this development versus taking that money and spending it somewhere else in the city to provide more. We don't know that because again, we're 2+ years away from the earliest delivery of the building. But at the same time, it's something that we've talked to the alderman about. Again, there's no legal affordable requirement, but as trying to be a good
I know that,
citizen.
and you know why I'm asking.
No, I know.
But there is, but there is in this instance with a variance on the parking being requested. And I understand that it is available. You're in what's it called, the TSL area. You're across the street from the L, but nevertheless, it's a special use because it's specific to each community to look at.
The special use relates directly to the ground floor retail because our footprint of retail is smaller than 20% of the lot area total, which is just the standard zoning requirement. On the TSL, that's the variation.
No, I understand, but I think that the part of the discussion about the TSL in terms of creating it was to ensure that a number of things, but also to be able to have input in terms of the circumstances around each
Sure.
case. So that's why I ask a lot of these
Sure.
questions. So I guess then the other question I have is, we used to in the old rules, old applications, ask for the profit with and without the variation. And but we don't now, but I'd like to know what that is in this instance, if you can provide that.
So our original application prior to the rule change included a projected economic analysis because it's not part of the current rules. I'm being honest, I'm not prepared to speak directly to it. What really comes of it though is without being able to get the parking reduction, it amounts to approximately 8 units. The parking reduction that is proposed is 91 to 38. But in reality, because it's a TSL location, you divide it by half. So 50% is your requirement. And that puts us at approximately, doing math on the spot, 45, call it, 46 spaces. So we're really asking for the difference, the delta between 50% to get us to 8. The second part of the question is the loading berth. We actually saw, and I'm going to speak to this from my perspective, we saw a mix of opinion on whether or not more parking was required. We had some people that said, absolutely not, get rid of all the parking. And we had other people that said, no, we need parking. It's in demand in the area. So what we did try and do is kind of blend the two and max out our parking, and reducing or waiving the loading berth allows us to pick up 3 more parking spaces in the same footprint of the garage. And it also keeps, to the earlier point, move in, move out activities inside the garage off the alley and not on Sheridan and not on Irving Park Road. So there was quite a bit of thought and frankly change. I mean, we adjusted and actually increased the number of parking spaces to replace the loading berth and kind of max out that footprint based on the comments we had received from people from the neighborhood.
So what does that mean in terms of when people are moving in? Where will they?
So all that activity would occur through the garage, inside, off the main street. That was another significant concern with.
So they'd enter through the alley
Correct.
into the garage.
And
that's
all the
where
activity would occur inside. Yeah.
Okay, so let me just, aldermanic support?
I I'm not
Oh,
aware
the
of any
alder-
opposition.
alderman has a
I
personal.
know that the alderman,
Personal issue. she
yeah,
said.
so I know the alderman had a personal issue, and Jesse Orr, who I've been working with for 6 or 7 months now on this, is out of the office. So I believe we have the alderman's support, or at best, we don't have opposition or objection based on, again, the plan that we adjusted through the process.
If I might,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Staff had received an email from the alderman's office that their position is no objection, so they're
Okay.
not taking a stand.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, so the alderman's office is no objection.
And, but just one more, so there is I just want to clarify or confirm that regardless of the technical details that you just went into, the fact of the matter is by being able to provide fewer parking spaces, that there is an economic benefit to doing that.
There's an economic limitation because without the further parking reduction beyond 50%, it reduces the overall unit total within the building because we'd have to maintain a 50% parking ratio. So we would lose, said approximately 8 parking spaces. That translates to, call it 8 units. So the difference of the income that would be generated from those 8 units is significant. I mean, you're talking almost 10%
Right,
of a reduction. So, and that's just
right,
pure math. I'm not going on
No,
specific
that's
projected
exactly
rents, but
right,
that is, it is quite meaningful to the overall project.
right.
And especially because we are doing 7 stories, it's a different type of construction. It's more expensive, taller, and the only way for us to meet the allowed density on the property is buying through the parking reduction.
Got it. My 2 cents is some of that could be split the difference with some affordability, but
Understood.
FYI. Okay, well, I think that's my.
Okay. As far as so there's going to still be ground floor commercial.
Yes, they're right at the hard corner, and that's approximately a little over 2,000 square feet. There are no residential units on the first floor. It's a technical requirement, special use, because we're not meeting the required retail footprint. And again, that was kind of reverse engineered to provide the parking behind it. So we kind of pushed it to the corner, which we think is probably the most appealing retail segment because it does kind of transition more residential as you go down Sheridan. So kind of holding the hard corner with retail, but creating a box that, again, we can have a residential lobby, we can have our, kind of an initial back of the house type operations, and then all parking behind was kind of our design solution to the parking request.
Okay. The next thing I'm going to ask you, I want you to humor me because full disclosure, I had in my 20s, I spent a ton of time at the Holiday Club. So make me feel better about my vote.
Right. We want the Holiday Club as bad as the neighbors want the Holiday Club. And I cannot underestimate, as this board knows, on projects across the city, the retail market is difficult. To go into a project and know that there's at least interest from a retailer, and not only a retailer, but a tavern tenant who presumably is going to be there longer than a clothing store, longer than a typical turnover retail space, is fantastic. Where we kind of got to was with a Holiday Club was not in a position to sign a lease with us to come back, not knowing the uncertainty of where they're going to be for the next 2 years. So we want them back probably more than they want to come back, just because of the certainty of having that retail tenant in our building. But we also know the reality, if they relocate and they knock it out of the park, I don't know if they're going to come back. We just want to make sure the space is available if they do make the decision. So it's really their decision to make after we build the building.
And if-
Can I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I, since you have a fond place in your heart for it, it is a great place. It's a staple of the neighborhood. And it would mean a lot to us, as Nick said, to have them back, but for a lot of different reasons. One, because it is the heart and soul of the neighborhood. We took the time and effort to deal with the owners, with many design conversations. Arden, the chief architect, we designed the space as it sits right now to assure that it's big enough for their needs. It's more efficient than their old space. It's less square footage, but we went through potential layouts and where the coolers would be and, you know, how it would work. So if, you know, things fall into place for them with the timing, really more for them, that it's ready to go. And I think from their perspective, the size will work. So we expanded things to make it work and, you know, could inch in and lose a parking space if we needed to in the future, and would, you know, adjust things to accommodate them. So we have worked with them quite a bit.
No, I appreciate that, and I think if I were to, you know, if Counselor Fatigas and I were to continue to go back and forth, he would eventually argue, I think rightfully so, that my emotional attachment to the Holiday Club, based, you know, on 20-some years ago, is not one of the standards under the special use criteria.
Tangential. Tangential.
Chair, you're not the only one with that. I too lived up the block from Holiday Club and also spent many a night.
Since we're going there, I think there's only one bad case after this. It's interesting because so many people responded with positive thoughts about the Holiday Club, which is a tavern. And normally, if we were trying to establish it new in a neighborhood, this place would be packed saying absolutely not here.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's really kind of fun that a lot of the comments that we got were, we love the project. We love all this great stuff. Why do you have to get rid of the Holiday Club? And it's like, we want him back. So it was very interesting seeing the community outreach and really the positive thoughts about what, from a zoning perspective, is a tavern, which usually comes with issues.
Yeah.
So, or at least neighbor issues.
Sure,
So.
You would think it would be actually different considering how many times that jukebox has eaten my dollars. Time. It's a great spot. But to confirm, you'll be honoring their lease through the end of
Of
their
course,
term.
of course.
Is there additional space for retail if they were to come back? Is there additional retail
Not,
space?
if they were to come back, they would be our sole retail tenant. The retail, again, is a little bit of a scary just environment right now. And I've said it 3 times, I'm sorry, knowing that they would potentially come back solves a retail issue for the developer. So selfishly, we do want them back.
Sure.
So you'll build it out as you're thinking, but I'm assuming you've designed it so that you could split it up if you needed to?
Yes, we kept it flexible with access to one door to Sheridan, one to Irving Park, and the ability to combine it.
You're at the corner. I get it.
Yeah, so it has some flexibility, so it can be basically two separate retail tenants.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? We will take this matter under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last case, 195-23S, 7051 South Block.
Okay. I might have just been moving out of the neighborhood by then. We might have. Right, would everyone, planning to testify, please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in these proceedings?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Counselor Fatikas, if you will give us, well, actually, I think preliminary issue, right?
I think, yeah, I agree. So again, before we even start, Nicholas Fatikas on behalf of the applicant. With me is co-counsel David Hyde. David is handling the administrative review complaint that went before the circuit court that led to the remand. So with respect to the briefs, I admittedly charged David with that task, so I wanted to make sure he was here so we could work through the preliminary issues. And I really think, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, I think we're really down to one issue, which is which rules apply, meaning the rules that were in place in 2023 versus the rules that are now in place under the ZBA's rules of procedure. I believe the reply brief provided by city kind of confirms our position that the 2025, your rules apply to the hearing, the rehearing. And I'll turn it over to David if you want a reply, argument, or briefing.
So, with regard, I've read the briefs, so, we don't need to start from square one.
Right.
But if you want to, any highlights and anything that you wanted to reply to that was in the city's brief, that you think is still relevant right now.
Yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Chairman and board. I think that we absolutely agree with the city that the current rules apply. And
I
think
agree.
So with that, and with the way things stand with the signups today, there are no objectors
Right.
as interested parties, which basically sidesteps the,
Right.
the evidentiary issue that was giving everybody heartburn at the last
Right.
time. So I think
A lot of the issues, I think, what we were potentially anticipating is that there were going to be some kind of documents that were submitted to be used at this continued hearing. That didn't happen.
Exactly.
There are no documents that were submitted into evidence in accordance with our rules. So we don't have that. I will say, just so that we're clear here, that there was one thing that I don't agree with in the applicant's brief, and that was that to the extent you were trying to make the argument that we just have to look at it as it was, over a year ago when the application was submitted, I don't agree with that. The applicant did choose to stand on its prior submission, but if there were things that happened since then, that's fair game that could come in via testimony if there is something on that. And certainly you would be entitled to rebut that as well. But if the situation was that we were just supposed to look at what this was at the last hearing, I think the court would have ordered the board to just read the transcripts, and they didn't do that. Instead, we got a rehearing. So I do think that new evidence in the form of testimony could come in, but as there are no documents to even consider at this
And I think without restating it, Chairman, everything that what we were concerned about in terms of new information, new evidence, none of that came to be. So as I understand it, under the current rules, the people who are here in opposition to the case are treated as non-interested party participants pursuant to open meetings. They absolutely have a right to speak to the board, offer support, opposition, or neutrality. But in terms of introducing new evidence and cross-examining witnesses, they're not given that. They don't have that right because they aren't interested parties as defined by 6.7.3, and then more specifically, registration as an interested party at 6.7.3.1 in the new code.
That's
in the new
correct.
rules.
That's correct. The Alderman's office is treated as a non-party, not an interested party under our current rules. I do see that Nancy Radzovich from the Department of Plan Development raised her hand. Nancy?
Yeah, I've not been through one of these before, so I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask this type of question. But if I heard correctly, you said that it's, in your opinion, it's appropriate to look at current conditions and for this, as opposed to just looking at the static conditions that were in place in August 2023. DPD did not do an additional analysis based on current conditions because it was our understanding that this whole hearing was supposed to be based on whatever was presented at the time of August 2023 when this was heard.
And Chairman, before you even respond to that,
Yeah.
we also did not provide an updated MAI report because I did not want to further confuse the issue of us being allowed to submit new information when other parties weren't. So I don't personally see an issue with that, but
So I don't love the way this was done. I think that it would have been better had the applicant chosen to submit a new application and an updated report from its appraiser, because we're not looking at this as it existed in 2023. We have to just, try to put blinders on and say, well, we're not going to look at how it exists now. I don't think, well, the court didn't order that. And so in that kind of an analysis, I don't know how you do that, how you put the toothpaste back in the jar when it's.
so 2 points on that. The first is, I think I'm going to go in reverse order. Because no new reports can be submitted, as you just said, we can still offer testimony. So if we need to verify that the conditions that were general land use conditions that were established during the first hearing are the same or substantially similar to what they were or are now, we can get that information through testimony from our appraiser. I'm going to go on a little bit of a limb. There were many factors in our decision to not file a new application. One of those is potentially losing a relationship to the original hearing and the original transcript. Even though the court didn't ask for it, I agree, it maybe was something that was an option that maybe could have been considered. Had we simply withdrawn the application and filed new, it would erase what had already occurred. Second, as you may know, in order to even get a zoning denial letter for an application, we have to submit a significant amount of information and go through reviews with the city. Some of them take 2 months, some of them take 6, 7, 8 months. We had a case that we clearly know was sufficient to get to the board, and it led to a 2-2 split. So we know that there's at least something behind it. Part of this was managing the timing of the review to be able to get back in front of you efficiently, and then if we hopefully can withdraw our appeal after today's hearing, and if not, we already have a case pending in court. What we didn't want to do was interrupt that process, the appeal process, by filing a new application and rendering what was done previously entirely moot.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of rationale why, because we struggled with it, and collectively, we struggled with it.
Sure. I mean, so it's clear, well, let me get your position on this. I mean, because I'm thinking, this rehearing has to be based on the evidence that comes in this hearing. In other words, even though I was present at the last hearing, I think it would be inappropriate for me to rely on anything that happened in that hearing to make a decision in this hearing.
I agree entirely.
Okay.
I agree entirely.
Because none of the other commissioners here are going to be reading the transcripts from the prior hearing.
Nor should they. This is, as I understand it, the order was for a rehearing. So we're creating a new transcript today that then leads you to make a decision or to render a decision, and then whatever happens after that happens.
Nancy?
Again, Nancy Razovich, DPD. Our concern with that is, once again, we were advised that everything was supposed to be based on the past application. So we've not had a chance to do any sort of analysis because, as you recall, we recommended denial. When we recommended denial, that was based on our analysis of what was existing in the community at the time. I believe and I read the transcripts because I was preparing based on the past case, that there was reference to a gas station that was under construction at the time. We haven't had a chance to look at whether or not that's been open, that's operating. We haven't been a chance to look at what other community businesses might still be operating if they're not. If I heard the attorneys or the applicant's attorney correctly, he said that their appraiser is prepared to talk about that, which
Well,
I don't want to assume, but
His testimony, not provide an updated report.
Okay.
Specifically.
But I that's the challenge here is if we're saying we cannot introduce new evidence, but we can't go back and pretend that it's 2023, our data and our analysis was all subjected to what was in existence then. We haven't had the opportunity to do a new analysis. So if we're going to proceed under the premise that we take into consideration the current conditions, we would request a continuance so we have
Absolutely.
the actual opportunity to do that analysis.
I have to object to that, Chairman. Absolutely not. If the staff, whether they got directions or advice from council or advice from the department to do or not do work, they did or did not do that work on their own, on their own volition, not us. We didn't direct anybody to do or not update reports prepared by the city. We collectively put our team in place. We briefed the issue with the law department to ask for a continuance when we've resolved the primary issue regarding the introduction of new evidence and what rules apply. To me, it's frankly, it's unfair. It's to that point. The fact that they didn't do their job in between is not the applicant's fault.
Nancy?
But if he's saying that they've done analysis to prepare for today, and once their experts start presenting analysis based on current conditions, that is presenting new testimony that we've not had a chance to respond to. So similar to what the attorney is saying, he doesn't want to have new information introduced that he has to respond to. Similarly, if new information is being introduced by them, we should have the opportunity to review it before we have to
There's nothing new.
update our recommendation.
Chairman, there's nothing new to review. That's the point. It's the exact same plan. It's the exact same MAI report. It's the exact same witness statements. Nothing new. And we're not expecting DPD to change its position. To get a continuance so that they could update their denial letter is ridiculous. I'm sorry. At this point, after a hearing, an appeal, and a remand, for the department to say that they didn't update their reports.
Can I just, for
Response?
clarification,
Yeah.
it's not to update our denial. What I'm trying to point out is what I've been hearing, and maybe I'm hearing incorrectly, is that the opinion today is that the current conditions is what should be considered in the context of this proposed special use. But up until this point, we've been reading that no new information can be presented. So it's kind of a dichotomy here, hearing that we need to, that the board is going to be considering on the current conditions, which we've been told we really need to follow what was in the existing case. So it's not necessarily that we want to, spend time updating our denial. We just want to make sure that if conditions have changed and if there's testimony presented that talks about how the changes in the conditions surrounding the area, which is part of the basis for our denial, may have changed, we just want to have the opportunity to be able to evaluate that.
If I could just restate before you make up your mind, the fact that they didn't do that proactively for today's hearing as a maybe, as a backup, the applicant should not bear the brunt of that. They could have done it. They chose not to. That's not the applicant's fault.
I'm going to deny the request for a continuance. I do think that the department should have looked at this to confirm that what it said back in 2023, when it issued its denial, that it still took that position. And I think it would be unfair to grant another continuance for the applicant at this time. So we are going to go forward today. The applicant can put on their case. DPD can still discuss its denial, and if the circumstances have changed since that denial, in the facts that were set forth in that denial letter, then I expect somebody to point it out, if that's true. If it's not, then I think we may reach the conclusion that, okay, those facts and circumstances that were presented in the letter are still applicable to this day. Now, the ultimate effect of that, that's to be decided, but I think we're going to go forward. I think that's the fairest thing to do in this case. And so that's what we're going to do. And I think that given the situation where we're relying on older submissions, but here we are, over a year later, rather than do the kind of short form that we would typically do, let's go long form.
Thank you.
And the questions, I want everybody to understand that the way you frame your questions should be, if I know that, for example, your appraiser's report is older too, but getting them to confirm the conditions of the present time,
Correct.
so that we can make a decision based on the present, which I think we have to be able to do. I just
Understood.
don't think it makes any sense to say that we can't consider things that happened in the interim.
Agreed.
Okay.
We're in agreement on that.
Okay. All right. So with that, go ahead and put on your case, and then once you've concluded your case, then we'll go to DPD, and then we will go to the alderman's office as well, because I can see that they are here in objection. And then we'll go back to you at the end for brief closing rebuttal.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, sir.
I mean, I'm going to go backbench so I can get out of Nick's way. So that,
Sure. Thank you for coming.
thanks for having me.
All right, Chairman, again, I'm here this afternoon on behalf of the applicant, Mid-City Food and Fuel 2 Incorporated. The applicant has a lease for the subject property at 7051 South Wabash.
Counselor,
I jumped right into it. I'm
no,
sorry.
that's okay. Let me just jump in real quick, because I think what might help kind of set the stage for everything is to do this the way that we would do it previously, which is we would read the recommendation into the record. So I'm going to do that right now, just so that we can all refresh our recollection as to what DPD had written back on August 18 of 2023. So this was the recommendation of the department for calendar number 19523S from August 18, 2023. The Department of Planning and Development recommends denial of the proposed gas station. The proposed gas station will have an adverse impact on the community, as there is already an oversaturation of gas stations in this neighborhood, with 4 existing gas stations within a half-mile and a total of 10 existing gas stations within 3/4 miles of the subject property. In addition, the development of a proposed gas station at this location will restrict the community's desire and vision for diversity of businesses along this stretch of 71st Street that will better serve the area neighborhood/residents versus commuters using 71st Street to access the nearby Interstate 94 highway. Furthermore, other than 3 of the 4 existing gas stations and a Subway restaurant, the majority of the businesses in this immediate area close between 6 and 10 p.m., with a few open until midnight. Based on the foregoing, it is the department's recommendation that the proposal to establish a gas station be denied, as it is not compatible with the character of the surrounding area in terms of operating characteristics, including hours of operation and traffic generation. is not in the interest of the public convenience and will have a significant adverse impact on the general welfare of the neighborhood. And with that, Counselor, for the applicant, you may proceed.
Okay, again, long form but short intro. Nick Fatikas from Law Offices of Sam Banks. I'm here on behalf of the applicant Mid-City Food and Fuel 2 Incorporated. The applicant is a lease for the subject property at 7051 South Wabash. The subject site contains 20,858 square feet of total lot area, and it's currently vacant and unimproved land. The lot is located just east of the Dan Ryan Expressway at the northeast corner of South Wabash and 71st Street. It's also less than a mile west from the Chicago Skyway. The applicant is proposing to develop the vacant lot with a new 8-pump gas station and a 1-story accessory retail store. In order to permit the fueling station component, the applicant is seeking a special use because the subject property is located in a C1-1 zoning district. I point out for the record that the retail store is a permitted use in the C11, so the special use is obviously specific to the fueling component. There will be 3 primary witnesses testifying this afternoon on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Ahmed Mohsen, our project architect, Mr. Ben West, and our MAI designated appraiser, Mr. Toby Sorensen. And Chairman, as you know, I'm just going to very simply restate the procedure. The case was originally heard in 2023. At that time, there were 4 board members. The commissioners split the vote 2-2. It ended up being remanded on an administrative review. Now that we have 5 board members, we're representing the case to you. The project plans, the same professionals that testified in August of 23 are the same people in front of you today. And with that, I'd ask to call my first witness, Ahmed Mohsen.
Go ahead.
Ahmed, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Ahmed Mohsen, 7050 99th Street, Chicago Ridge, 60415.
And Ahmed, you're the president of the applicant Mid-City Food and Fuel Number 2 Incorporated?
Yes,
And you're proposing, as I stated, to develop the currently vacant property at 7051 South Wabash with a new gas station and an accessory retail convenience store. Is that right?
yes,
And the proposed station will function essentially with 4 pumping islands, a total of 8 fueling positions, and a 3,170 square foot 1-story retail building.
yes,
And in addition to the 8 fueling positions, you're also providing 2 off-street parking spaces for customers who want to go into the store. Is that right?
yes,
And you'll also be incorporating ordinance compliant landscaping, outdoor lighting, and perimeter fencing. Is that right?
yes,
In terms of site access, your plan relies on 1 driveway proposed on South Wabash and 1 driveway proposed on 71st Street, correct?
yes,
So again, 1 driveway on each primary frontage.
yes,
And while 71st Street is an east-west, more arterial street, this particular segment of South Wabash is one-way southbound. Is that right?
yes, that's correct.
And you're comfortable with those traffic patterns, those frankly existing traffic patterns, because you actually operate other locations in the city that front on at least one-way traffic streets.
Yes,
Now, in terms of hours of operation, the proposed gas station and convenience store will operate between 5 a.m. and midnight, 7 days a week. Is that right?
yes, that's correct.
And in responding to the department's recommendation letter, you believe those hours are consistent with the other retail business and even less than the gas stations that currently operate in the neighborhood.
Yes,
With respect to site security, you are also proposing to install a surveillance camera system to capture not only your on-site customer traffic and in-store operations, but also the public areas along Wabash and 71st Street, right?
yes, that's correct.
And those cameras will operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
Yes,
And as a commitment to the Park Manor residents, you've committed to linking your camera system to the city's OEMC network, correct?
that's correct.
Now, in terms of staffing, the gas station will operate typically with 1 to 2 on-site employees each day.
Yes, that's correct.
And in response to concerns raised about crime and loitering, you've also committed to employing a security guard between noon and midnight every day to make sure there's a security presence not only for your customers and your staff, but also your immediate neighbors. Is that right?
Yes,
Now, in order to address concerns raised about food shortages or food options in the neighborhood, you've committed to providing dairy products, produce, frozen foods, and additional grocery items in the convenience store, correct?
yes,
So really a more robust offering than your typical chips, pop, candy.
yes, that's correct.
And with 3,170 square feet of space in the convenience store, it's a commitment you're actually quite easily able to accommodate.
Yes,
Ahmed, before we conclude your testimony, I'd like the board to know a little bit more about you as an operator. You've been in the gas station business for now almost 20 years, is that right?
Yes, as a family business.
And again, it started as a family business, and at this point, it's actually grown to 20 locations in Chicago and suburban Cook County.
Yes, that's correct.
And you believe that over those 20 years, you've learned to operate your stations and convenience stores what you call the right way.
Yes.
You've hired from the community, you've developed relationships with neighborhood organizations, business chambers, aldermen, local police officers, and most importantly, many of your neighbors.
Yes.
And in the end, you've really seen that maintaining a clean store and being involved in the day-to-day operations is what sets you apart from some of your competition.
Yes, that's correct.
And frankly, it's why you believe many of your neighbors end up being some of your most regular customers.
Yes.
So I know it sounds like it's not just lip service to the alderman or to the board. You have 20 years of experience and a track record showing that you're a responsible operator who's invested in the communities that you do business in.
Yes.
And even though there are other gas stations in the area, you're confident your operation and the way you operate your store will be a success.
Yes.
Ahmed, is it your understanding that witness statements were previously filed on your behalf in this case?
Yes.
And if you were to continue to testify, would that testimony be consistent with the statements you provided?
Yes, it would be.
Thank you. Chairman, my next witness is Ben West. Ben, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Benjamin West, XUS Architects and Consultants, 801 West Adams Street, Chicago, Illinois.
And Counselor, I think as far as the architect is concerned, you could probably,
I'm going to condense it, but there are two standards I'd like to speak to. So
Sure.
if you could just give me a little bit of wiggle room.
Sure.
I'll get there quick. Ben, again, you are a licensed architect in the state of Illinois,
I am.
and you've testified in that capacity before this board, correct?
I have.
And your firm designed the gas station and convenience store project for the subject site?
Yes.
Without being redundant on the plans, it's a one-story, 3,170 square foot retail store,
Correct.
4 pumping islands with 8 fueling positions.
Correct.
And with respect to the one-story design, it's actually typical of the gas station and convenience stores in the area, as well as many of the retail buildings that are also one-story along 71st Street to the east and west. Is that right?
That's correct. It matches the existing context.
So so with respect to the standards regarding consistency and compatibility with building scale and design, you believe that your design meets that criteria?
I do.
Again, site access is coming from a single proposed driveway on Wabash and a second separate driveway on East 71st.
Correct.
And that design is intended to promote pedestrian safety and comfort and frankly, reduce potential for conflicts around the perimeter of the site and really at the intersection.
Correct.
And Ben, while DPD has certainly raised concerns about the use, it's your professional opinion that the proposed site and building plans comply with all applicable standards of the ordinance?
Yes.
And again, it's your professional opinion that the station will operate in a safe and efficient manner?
Yes.
And Ben, is it your understanding that witness statements were filed on your behalf in this case?
Yes.
And if you were to continue to testify, would that testimony be consistent with the statements that were provided?
Yes.
Great. Toby Sorensen, the MAI appraiser, is my next and hopefully final witness. Toby, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Toby Sorensen, 1822 Ridge Avenue, Suite 120, Evanston, Illinois, 60201.
And Toby, you are a designated MAI appraiser in the state of Illinois,
Yes, I am.
and you've previously testified in that capacity before this board. Is that right?
I have.
In fact, you were to testify in MAI appraiser the last time this case was heard in August of 23.
That's correct.
And the scope of your assignment was then, and as it is now, to determine whether the requested special use complies with the general criteria for special uses as set forth in the code, correct?
Correct.
And you physically inspected the subject property and the surrounding area?
I did.
You also prepared a written report summarizing your findings and conclusions. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
And it's your understanding that that report was previously submitted to the board and is a part of the record?
Yes.
With respect, though, to the special use standards, is it your professional opinion that the proposed special use complies with all applicable standards of the zoning ordinance?
Yes, it is pending approval of the special use.
Do you believe the proposed special use is in the interest of public convenience and will not have a significant adverse impact on the general welfare of the neighborhood or community?
I believe it is in the public interest and will not have an adverse impact on the surrounding community. It would develop a currently vacant lot. It's intended to cater not to increase traffic, but to the surrounding existing area and transient traffic as well. It's located in what's considered in real estate terms a interstate interchange commercial node, which would attract uses like gas stations, potentially fast food restaurants, and on occasion hotels. But those are the kinds of uses that congregate there. And it is of the type of use and design that would likely, again, in real estate terms, generate cumulative attraction. In other words, it has the potential to be a catalyst for future new retail development and/or redevelopment of existing uses.
And do you believe that the proposed use, special use is compatible with the character in terms, I'm sorry, let me repeat that. Is it your opinion that the proposed special use is compatible with the character of the area in terms of site planning, building scale, and project design?
Yes, it is.
And again, that's because it's a one-story convenience store?
Correct. One story with the 2 access points previously referenced and meeting all of the zoning codes, landscaping and fencing requirements.
And just a little bit deeper on that, with respect to the other gas stations that you're under, the nearby gas stations that you're understanding, those are also one-story retail stores?
Yes, that's correct.
And many of the buildings, the retail buildings on 71st Street, east and west of the subject site are also one-story structures, correct?
Many, if not most. Yes, correct.
Okay. Do you believe the proposed special use is compatible with the character of the area in terms of operating characteristics, such as hours of operation, outdoor lighting, noise, and traffic generation?
Yes, I do. It's consistent with other gas stations in the area. The applicant has agreed to reduce the operating hours to 5 to midnight, which I understand was a concern of the Department of Planning and Development. That would put it more in line with other existing retail operations and even more reduced hours than a number of other existing gas stations in this area. The outdoor lighting and security would be an enhancement to the area as opposed to a vacant dark lot. And the applicant believes the customers would consist of the surrounding residents as well as the existing transient vehicular traffic.
And lastly, is it your professional opinion that the special use was designed to promote pedestrian safety and comfort?
Yes, it is. As stated previously, there's the 2 points of access, one on each roadway. It's fenced and landscaped in consistent manner with the zoning code requirements.
And Toby, I have a few follow-up questions regarding the department's letter of recommendation that was debated prior to hearing. You've, of course, reviewed DPD's recommendation letter for the project, right?
Yes.
And essentially, it cites 3 primary reasons to support its recommendation. Is that your understanding?
Yes, it is.
And that's adverse impact based on oversaturation, right?
Correct.
Restricting other uses and not following the community's desire and vision for diverse businesses.
Correct.
And then lastly, incompatible hours of operation.
Yes.
All right. Toby, is it your professional opinion that there would be no adverse impact above and beyond the effects inherently associated with a gas station special use at the subject property?
That is my opinion, yes.
And again, it's your understanding that the above and beyond standard comes from Illinois Supreme Court case law. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Is it also your opinion that the reason there are 4 other gas stations within a half mile and 10 total stations within 3/4 of a mile is because the immediate area is bound to the west by the Dan Ryan and to the east by the Chicago Skyway?
That's correct. It's the type of location that would attract gas stations.
And it's interesting that the DPD letter references 4 nearby stations and a total of 10 within 3/4 of a mile, because our site is exactly that, 3/4 of a mile from the Skyway.
Correct.
So from really a pure kind of land use perspective, it actually makes sense that there would be 10 stations within a mile because those stations serve the tens of thousands of people using the city's highway system every day.
That's correct. And I would add that the majority of the existing gas stations that are present are typical of urban gas stations, meaning that they have a smaller site that can accommodate fewer pumps and fewer fueling positions than would be the case if this were a currently developed gas station. cumulatively, when we're talking about fueling positions, as opposed, in conjunction with demand, we're talking about a collective group of gas stations that might represent what a single gas station that was newly developed would have in terms of fueling positions, were it not for the restrictions of the site.
Toby, with respect to just general need, I know that that's another standard from the zoning ordinance. In the context of zoning, is it your understanding that need is actually defined not as an absolute, but again, as something that is expedient or reasonably convenient?
That's my understanding, yes.
So in our context, we're not showing that it's not our burden to show that there are no other gas stations and we're solving a gas station, quote, desert issue, right?
Correct.
Instead, it's to show that our station would serve the general public in an expedient and reasonably convenient way, again, based on its almost immediate proximity to the Dan Ryan and being less than a mile, 3/4 of a mile from the Skyway.
Correct.
And it's your professional opinion that, again, locating a gas station at this particular property, block east of a major highway, at a property 3/4 away from another major highway, clearly would have a reasonably expedient service to the general public.
Yes, it would.
With respect to the second primary concern raised by DPT, the gas station use, as you understand it, does not impose site restrictions on other uses, does it?
It does not.
So, they don't have a land use impact like a tavern, which needs to be a certain distance from other taverns, schools, churches, correct?
That's correct.
Or another example would be a billboard advertising sign that needs to be 300 feet from another billboard advertising sign on the same side of the street and cannot be within 500 feet of an expressway.
Correct.
And another example would be a cannabis dispensary, which needs to be 1,500 feet from another cannabis dispensary.
Correct.
So gas stations are an allowed use in the B3 and all C zoning districts, provided a special use is obtained.
That's right.
So the establishment of a gas station at the subject site would not impede the development opportunities of other B or C zone property in the immediate area. Is that right?
It is correct.
I mean, again, that same development opportunity exists today.
That's right.
Additionally, Toby, is it your understanding that there's no ordinance imposed limitation or moratorium on the number of gas stations allowed in the city of Chicago?
Yes.
Similarly, so there's no defined limit.
That's correct.
And similarly, the community's quote, desire and vision is not defined or codified in any way by the ordinance.
Not to my knowledge.
To go a step further, you're not aware of a comprehensive plan adopted by city council or an overlay specific to this stretch of 71st Street.
No, I'm not.
So we're all clear, the underlining zoning districts control the uses that can be established on those properties.
Correct.
And lastly, with respect to the hours of operation, again, the applicant has agreed to operate between 5 a.m. and midnight, 7 days a week.
Yes.
And you believe these hours are more in line with the 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. retail business hours referenced in DPD's letter?
They are more consistent, yes.
And you'd agree that the proposed hours are obviously less than 3 of the 4 nearby gas stations referenced in the letter that operate 24 hours a day?
Correct.
So more in line with the other retail businesses and less than the majority of nearby gas stations.
That's right.
Thank you. Toby, as the chairman had indicated, you have, since the 2023 hearing, you have revisited the property?
I have not.
Have you updated your report?
I have not.
And all the information that you're presenting today is based on the conditions that that were presented to the board in 2023.
That's correct.
And with respect to substantive changes, are you aware of any significant changes in the land uses in the immediate area between August of 2023 and today?
I'm not aware of any changes that would materially impact my prior report's conclusions.
And for that reason, you would rely, if you were to continue to testify, you would rely on your written report to further explain or describe your findings and conclusions.
That's correct.
Thank you. Chairman, that concludes the applicant's case in chief. We're happy to answer any questions you or your board members have. I do note that there are a handful of people who are willing to speak in support. We'll follow your lead on that.
Um, with regard, Mr. Sorensen, with regard to the last bit of testimony you just gave, if I understood you correctly, you haven't reviewed this property since the prior submission that you did back in 2023?
Thank you. I have not physically inspected it.
Okay. Have you done any research or analysis into the area since your prior report in 2023?
Yes, I have. And
Explain what that was, what you did.
as just a general practice, it didn't necessarily relate specifically to this proposed use. I'm active as a real estate appraiser throughout the city and including in this area. So I do research regularly of sales and both of vacant land and of existing properties, rents and vacancy levels, general real estate dynamics.
Okay. But for example, back in August of 2023, DPD was saying that there were 4 existing gas stations within a half mile and 10 existing gas stations within 3/4 of a mile. Do you know if that's still true today?
I cannot say definitively how that may have changed.
What's that?
I cannot say definitively how that may have changed if it has.
Okay. Okay. And for Mr. Mosen, I just want to clarify on the record. I think you already said this. I know I heard it from your attorney and from Mr. Sorensen. But to clarify, because I think your application was requesting 24 hours, 7 days a week. But what you're saying here today is that if we were to grant the special use, you would agree to 5 a.m. to 12 a.m., 7 days a week.
Yes, that's correct, Chairman.
Okay. Okay, any other questions from the board before we go to the department? Okay, Nancy, you've heard the applicant's case in chief and their thoughts on your recommendation. Do you have any response?
Yes. So once again, Nancy Razovich, Department of Planning and Development, Assistant Commissioner in the Zoning Bureau. We stand by our recommendation. Since 2023, we've had the opportunity in the last few minutes to confirm that there are now 5 active gas stations, not 4 within a half mile, and 11 gas stations now within 3/4 of a mile. The gas station that has since opened was at 6901 South State, which is actually just about a 1/4 mile away from the subject property and has 10 fueling pumps. I do want to kind of talk a little bit about the testimony from Toby, where he talked about the focus on not only 71st Street, but also talked a little bit about the demand for fueling. So since the last hearing, there has been an increase in the number of gas stations. We still stand by our recommendations because we do still believe there's a saturation. When you look at the context of the area is more than just 71st Street. 71st Street, yes, is a connector. However, when you look at the context of the neighborhood, there's residential all around to the north and to the south. So we're reinforcing what we had testified to last time, that our position is that there is already an oversaturation of gas stations in this area, that we understand both the community through the alderman, conversations with the alderman, has a vision to try to get a better diversity of businesses for this area, something that will better support different demands and business support opportunities for the community at large. We also, in terms of the hours of operation, I understand that they're proposing a condition to reduce those, but still most of the area businesses seem to close between 6 and 10. our quick research seems to show that that's still consistent. There's I think one restaurant that opens till 2 a.m., but most of them close down much earlier in the area. So that would still be a little inconsistent with what's going on in the area. And just generally, we just still are of the opinion that there's a better opportunity for providing this community. Again, there's heavy residential both to the north and the south. For these residents to have the opportunity for something other than vehicular-oriented businesses that are serving just those cars that are going to and from highways. And with the oversaturation of business, it does kind of limit those opportunities for other developments.
Okay. Let's,
Do I get a chance?
yeah, but I think let's hold your thoughts. And, I see you're taking notes, so we'll do it all at once. You're gonna get the last word.
All right.
Okay, you're the applicant.
I'll
The
take it.
applicant gets the last word, so just write everything down, and you can do it all at once, so that way we're not just going, ping ponging. Before we go to the Alderman, let's just get I see that there are supporters here. So let's get your public comments, and then we'll go. If we could get there we go.
Yeah, I know that we said at the beginning of the conversation, are we adding new testimony because they were not here when we added, these are none of the witnesses. Matter of fact, none of them live in the community except for maybe one. One I know. So are we adding new witnesses to give testimony?
Because this is subject to the
I
to the
just wanna
Open
make sure.
Meetings Act,
Yeah.
anybody could show up today.
Gotcha.
And in support or objection for public comment. Let's do this briefly. Let's get the supporters, and if maybe we could start to my right. So you, sir, if you could pull that mic towards you, they'll light it up. They should light it up for you. And if you could state your name and address, please.
My name is Mitchell Darren. My address is 10410 South Rose. I stay in the Rosemore neighborhood. And I'm coming here to testify that it's a new gas station in our neighborhood. And I'm looking at the gas station on 70 and Wabash. Our gas station is great. We have other gas stations in our neighborhood, and this gas station just brings more bright lights. It brings, we got our seniors that like to go to it. We have coffee in it. It's just a different gas station. And it brings more business to the community. And I met him when they was doing that gas station. This was last year when they was finishing up that gas station.
So this is another gas station from the
This is
same
another
applicant?
gas station. I used to stay on 70th and Prairie, where this gas station's finna be built. But the gas station in the neighborhood that I stay at now, they just built it. That's how I met him. So I'm just here to testify. The gas station is great. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Sir, do you have, first, state your name and address, please?
Sam Binion, 7209 Ellis in the Greater Grand Crossing community.
And do you have anything to add in addition to what the last gentleman just said?
Yeah, so basically I am in the community. I've created organization, Operation Neighborhood Safety. And we do this in response to the carjackings that happened about 4 or 5 years ago when we was in the hype of carjackings. We started out with a group of 30-some community members from the Greater Grand Crossing community, where we go around to gas stations that had problems with drug sellings, loitering, bad sales of tobacco to youth, and all of those things. And when we first started this, we started out with 42 gas stations within that. And I understand what you're saying about, within the radius, we got 11 or 12 gas stations. But since then, we've reduced to about 12 or 13 gas stations that we serve on a weekly basis, that we go around, stand up for about a couple of hours and make sure that people can pump their gas safely, without getting carjacked and things like that. We reduced because the other gas station owners were not being involved in our community. I'm also the beat facilitator for 324 over there. I'm on the District Advisory Council for the 3rd District too as well. So the gas station to the west and the east has an increase of drug selling. We've been trying to fight tooth and nail, working with 3rd District Police Department, also working with 6th District Police Department to try to help reduce this crime on these properties. But these gas station owners have not been stepping forward with us. They haven't been in agreement with us. They let whoever stand out there on the islands and do what they do. 71st Indiana, 71st is state. So if not gonna be a part of our neighborhood, we don't need you there. We don't need that negativity. Yeah, there are a bunch of gas stations, but they're not being part of the community. They're not doing nothing to upgrade the community. They're not doing nothing to help us out in the community. So, and we get these complaints through the police department, through our DAC meetings, through our beat meetings, through all of it. So yeah, I am in agreement. There are too many, but they're not involved in that, not doing anything or selling anything, not doing anything, being positive in our community.
Thank you. Sir, could you state your name and address, please?
My name is Matt Brandon. I live 6901 South Wabash, 1 block from the gas station on 69th and State, and 1 block from the gas station that would be on 70th and Wabash. I remember when the gas station on 69th and State was proposed, I was against it. I was of the same opinion as the alderman that there were too many, and Alderman Hall wasn't there at that time, but there were too many gas stations. And then I was asked to meet with Mr. Moshen and talk to him. I met with Mr. Moshen. He brought me all the plans. I talked about my dislike of the gas station that sat on 71st and State and 71st in Indiana for the reasons that Sam talked about, because they are not part of the community. Those people come there, they let anything happen on their properties that can happen, and they wait for the police to respond. I took a chance on Mr. Moshen in 69th and State, it being 1 block away from my house, right on the corner, and he's come through. His gas stations do not have the people that hang around. He doesn't allow that. He has security. They are clean. The products are good. I also want to say that I support Alderman William Hall and his efforts to bring other business to the community, and I look forward to working with him on that. I disagree with him on this issue. I support him 99.9%. But on this, I know for a fact that Mr. Moshen is invested in the community. He's worked with us. I'm also a part of Operation Neighborhood Safety. He's worked with us. He's contributed to events that we've put on in the community for our children, and he runs a tight ship. But again, I support this alderman. I support what he's doing. I disagree with him on this.
Okay.
Love you all.
Hi, my name is Angela Benford. I'm a representative of Benford Protection Group, a security firm. My brother Andre Benford is the owner, who is also a retired police officer from the 3rd District. I want to basically say that after carefully assessing the specific needs of the development, we've designed a strategic security plan that includes a variety of proactive measures. 1, trained security personnel. We will have trained security guards on site for a minimum of 10 hours per day, with coverage from 2 p.m. to midnight, and will extend hours as needed to provide additional protection for the neighborhood, the customers, and we'll, yeah. Okay, and then ample lighting, 24/7 camera monitoring. The facility will be equipped with sufficient lighting to enhance visibility at all times. Additionally, we will implement a 24/7 camera surveillance system to ensure continuous monitoring of the premises, addressing any incidents properly. We also will do a trespass affidavit with the 3rd Police District, which is a signed trespass affidavit will be in place with the 3rd District Police Department, allowing for a rapid law enforcement response to any unauthorized individuals on the property. Our camera system will be integrated with the Office of Emergency Management and Communications Program, enabling real-time monitoring and coordination with local authorities with swift response and enhanced security. And last, we'll have a strict no loitering policy to further protect the property and its patrons and maintain a safe environment. We will enforce a strict no loitering policy, preventing unauthorized gatherings and ensuring that the site remains secure for all patrons and employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Question for, maybe for you, Counselor. That security plan that was just described,
That's new.
is that in the materials?
No, so it's all considered non-party testimony. We did speak to it in our case in chief from the applicant. The additional details, if you want us to stipulate, that's our program. That's our security program. The security professional was not present during the 2023 hearing. Again, given the rules and that, we're simply offering it as non-party testimony today.
Right. And for the applicant, do you agree to follow through with the security program that was just described by the witness?
Yes, of course.
And the name of that security company?
Benford Protection Group?
Is that BENFORD?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from the board before we go to the alderman?
I just want to confirm, and I apologize if I missed this, that the gas station at 6901 South State, that is your gas station, sir?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, let me just clarify, that's not the same applicant licensee. It's the same manager. So it's a different LLC, but the same manager.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
And because you asked, that was approved by the board and I have a copy of the resolution. So that all went through the proper channel of approvals to get open. And I do have a copy if you need it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. With that, Alderman, if you could state your name and role, please.
William Hall, 6th Ward Alderman. First thing I want to say is that 2 out of 3 of those brothers, I do know of their work, and the father of the second brother who spoke, truly a Chicago legend, and 99.9 on with them, but this 0.1. And after we're done with this, we're going to be back laughing. I do want to say that so many times we've seen this, and to the best of my ability, I'm going to maintain my emotions, but what makes this moment difficult is that this gentleman has not been a good neighbor. Number one, and I can share it with the board, 154 calls to the police for the 69th location. The thing that is so interesting is because it's a stretch between 69 to 6905, so technically, if you put in one address, is nothing there. But when you put in the whole address, over 150 calls. I got that number from my liaison who works in the 3rd District, police officer. Over 150 calls, domestics, disturbances, the list goes on and on. So,
Chairman, objection to foundation.
Overruled.
So at the end of the day, it's a pattern of issues. Fine, take away that. Just go on Instagram. Just 3 weeks ago, another incident involving
Objection, Your Honor, foundation.
Overruled.
at the end of the day, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, it's on the internet. His store that whatever role he plays, altercation, gentlemen out there, gun, BB gun or not. I have a video more, food on the floor. His worker picks it up, puts it back in the container, and puts it on the shelf after a resident caught him red-handed. If he's doing this on 69th and State, he's gonna take the same rodeo to 70th and Wabash. He's already been caught being a nuisance where he is. I met with this man along with his other colleagues in the gas station industry, and even they were disappointed. He's expanded his operation down State Street. Just recently got busted from BACP with spoiled meat at his other location. So while he may have other locations where they're doing such and such, well, but the two that's in the 6, he has not shown that he could be a good operator with that. Furthermore, at the second location, in which I was there 2 weeks ago, in which as much as I'm fighting to make sure kids don't get access to this poisonous hemp stuff, they have it nicely advertised. And I sent a kid in there because though it's not a law that regulates it, the accessibility to it with his fake Bally's casino that he's running, in which the 6th district commander was put on notice because I witnessed them take the little slip, go to the register and get cash. That's 2 stores that he's operating. So when we run the tape, over 150 calls for the police to one location, second location on record, look it up, in which he's transitioning into the second location in ownership.
The second location is
On
what
8259 to be exact, South State. So along the State Street corridor, he has police dealing with issues at his store. When he gets caught, he corrects. He does not proactively keep those spaces safe. So I have neighbors who have caught him, and I got the video. His operation promoting nasty food. So I guess he cleans it up when he knows he's coming. Because the times in which I've been in there with this man who works for me, and he can attest to the fact that when I drove by there 2 months ago, coming from downtown, I specifically said, let's go to his gas station with no objection other than what I do to every gas station in my ward. No different than the one on King Drive, in which on 71st and King Drive, I'll get to that in the end. We went in there, smelled like something died, carpets not cleaned, overpricing the food, and again, close to 3 weeks ago when he got caught, he miraculously goes and cleans stuff up.
Wait, 71st and King, is that also his?
No, I'm gonna get to that
Oh,
situation.
okay,
So on
okay.
69th Street with Lamont Watson, right here, we went in there, and again, the same things that have been consistent in the 1 year have been present, and I saw with my own eyes. On 69th Street, as I said, in the same seat, he's proposing a gas station on Wabash. As much as I love Mr. Brand, 10 toes down with him, that same commander who I stood and looked in his eyes about a month ago, willing to support a renovation for a police community room, that same commander will tell you he does not support that too, because A, we're trying to clean up 71st Street. I've aggressively cut down trees so that he can get a great shot of cameras. Indiana, we're on their bumper because they're selling all that crap. And then going further down the street on King Drive, same issue. If he's doing dirt on State Street, carrying that operation over to Wabash means from 71st and State, where there's an issue, selling Red Bull and another illegal stuff. 71st and Wabash, he keeps that same pattern, move it 1 block over. Indiana, which they're operating illegal crap there, and King Drive, that's 4 locations. When you run the tape of crime, first of all, we're cleaning up 71st and State because 2 people just were shot less than 6 months ago. So he's impeding upon keeping the community safe, and is documented. So anybody that has 154 calls and counting, with police constantly showing up to his one location, I find it hard to believe that he can miraculously fix this in less than a year. Secondly, the bait and switch with the security plan. Let's go back to the last testimony around the same issue in the same chamber. He had Wooten, who ran for office, don't even live in Chicago, similar to Herschel Walker in Texas, and was running a campaign there, trying to run this. He wrote the letter to support this foolishness. The man is MIA. He don't even live in Chicago. Now they have another firm. The point I'm trying to make is all of this bait and switch. I was raised as a child, if you put a suit on a pig, is still a pig. And I'll be doggone if we keep on putting suits on these licenses and they just baiting and switching the licenses changes because they keep getting caught. And so if you don't believe none of my testimony, just go on the internet. Instagram has all of the foolishness that's happening 1 block away at 69th and State. I stand 10 toes down against that type of operation, not against the person. And so for us in our ward, where we fought hard, 71st, 75th, to clean all of this stuff up that's been there for over 12 years, he's impeding upon the vitality and the welfare of the community. Couple of letters from a couple of people, couple of turkeys, couple of hams, couple of book bags don't mean you're a good business owner. And time again, we see this situation where you coddle a couple of groups, couple of community personalities, and that deems them as good. But they're not there getting the emails from the police officers. They're not there in the middle of the night driving by to see this because they sleep. And then last but not least, they're not dealing with the ripple effects of the trafficking that is bringing with outsiders that are trying to come and retaliate because this is seeming to be on State Street, the meetup for the foolishness. If there was a commitment to run this business right on State Street with a given period of time to show a decline and a morale, again, it makes it somewhat a community partnership, but it's not. This is a pimp move in which the exploitation of residents who need those convenience stores, because we don't got grocery stores, which I'm fighting to get that. So it becomes a situation which EBT money, seniors who got little money are going to this gas station, getting exploited with money. Kids are getting access to this weed that he's selling, in addition to the outside laundering at the pump. Furthermore, with the fact that all of this is supported by calls made to the police, in addition to BACP busting him at his other operations. And so what I'm saying is, I'm working hard to make sure that every corridor off that expressway is an entryway into a community that's welcoming, not a community that's a war zone. And time again, 69th Street has been a war zone. I've changed the traffic patterns to make it more consistent, to even try to help him with congestion, following what neighbors really wanted in that area. And so, again, I stand 10 toes down and 10 fingers down that this is not what we need at that corner on 70th and Wabash, because it's a problem on 69th and State. And so I'm not convinced that beyond, in concluding, I respect the art, the academic and the artistry of the designs, but the issue I have is he don't live over there. So when he talks about these quarter miles and stuff, just say what it is, a block away from each other. He don't live over there, he observes over there. The second one, he don't live over there, he observes over there. He don't even live over there. The owner of the doggone store. When I grew up, we could walk to the owner's house, like the gas station on 83rd and State that he just bought. Well, Mel's been working there for almost 20 years because he used to go to the same barbershop right across the street, in which we knew him when it was a full-service gas station. Those are the type of relationships that make thriving businesses. He don't got them. He has charity money to keep people quiet. He has all types of weird stuff going on, and he gets deaf and blind until there's heat from the city. That's not what we need. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the Alderman? Okay, thank you, Alderman. Let's go back now. We're now at the section where we're going back to the applicant for rebuttal and closing. Before you get to your closing, I did want to ask some questions, because I do remember seeing something in the briefs about BACP coming to your other locations. And in our new forms, we ask, for the last 24 months, what violations have you had in terms of, business, operations, building code, licensing, health, or safety? So with regard to that question, let me step back for a second.
Can I ask the question as a rebuttal? Because I know exactly.
Well, let me ask it. With regard to how many other gas stations do you operate within the city limits for the city of Chicago?
About a dozen.
A dozen, okay. And for those other roughly dozen gas stations that you operate, in the last 24 months, if you know, how many violations have those other gas stations had?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, he was just busted a month ago. Spoiled meat at the potential 8259, whatever finagling they got going on over there. He was just busted, and we can go get, if necessary, I'll send it to you and the board with BACP busted him for spoiled meat on 82nd and State Street at his other location.
Let's ask
Be
the, he-
clarified?
let's ask that specific question. He did mention spoiled meat at one of your locations. What happened with regard to that?
I'd like to answer if I can, because
I'd like the witness to
So
answer.
the location is referenced, so we took over February
This one.
13th. 8259 South State, we took over February 13th, less than a week, been a week, 2 weeks ago. So a month ago was not my ownership.
Okay.
and we have a license to prove that if you,
Yeah, I showed
again,
him.
we
That's
did
what I
not
pulled up
submit
on my
it,
phone
but we
earlier.
have a license to show
So
that.
you purchased
Yes.
this gas station on what date?
February 13th. So this month.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
fine. The over 150 calls from the 3rd District to the 69th Street location. And the internet video with the man with the gun. Did you know about that?
Yes, I'm familiar with the video.
All right, let's explain to me what that is.
The video, there was someone that asked a customer at the pump for money. The security guard, my security guard, was not in the video. He was walking them both out of the property. The guy spit on the customer's face. My security guard ran back to the store, called the police like he was supposed to, and locked the doors. That person that got spit on took out a BB gun and threatened the guy with the BB gun or whatever happened in the video. My security guard did his job, escorted both of them off the property, and called the police like he was supposed to.
Okay. And then what about, the alderman had indicated that there were over 150 calls to the police for the 69th and State location. What's your response to that?
That I'm not aware of, but we do work with the police and we do call them, of course. So calls of service is something that I'm proud of. I like to call the police and work with them. I attend the monthly CAPS meetings, and that's what I was told to do when I attend the monthly CAPS meetings.
Mr. Chair, if you have a business, and you got 150 calls, and you so involved, and he knows none of it, make it make sense. If I had 150 calls to my office from one person, no matter what I'm doing in this ward, 150, I'm gonna know about this one person that's calling. 150 calls or more. That was from just 1 year. We didn't even count this year. 150 calls from 3rd District to get some help. Assaults. The list goes on of what's going on in his property. And he knows nothing about it. So if he's irresponsible again there, how will he be responsible a block away?
Chairman,
Let me regain control of the hearing here for a second. Alderman, I do appreciate the wanting to respond to everything he says, but the process that we're at right now is they get to rebut. Now, look, you're making points that I understand, and we're going to deliberate those points. But we're at the point now where we're at rebuttal and closing. So we gotta stick there.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
That's okay. All right, so, all right, with that, why don't you, Counselor,
Chair, if you could just give me a little bit of a room to just kind of rehash some of the
Go
things that we
ahead.
just talked about. I mean, I want to be clear, the Alderman referenced issues at 8259 South State Street, is that right?
Yes,
And I want to be clear on this, you purchased the property and obtained a license to do business in your company's name on February 13th of 2025.
yes, correct.
So anything that happened prior to that, albeit not up to your standard, was not your responsibility. Is that right?
I can't take responsibility for it.
Okay. With respect to 6905 South State Street, the alderman referenced multiple nuisances and complaints. In your time operating 6905 South State Street, have you received a single BACP citation or violation?
None.
With respect to, you also, regarding your involvement in the community, is it true that you attend every 3rd District CAPS meeting with one of your one of your employees.
Yes, that's correct.
And through that process, you've developed a working relationship with the local police,
Yes,
and you have an understanding that if issues happen at the property, you're directed to call the police.
yes, and I even have some of the lieutenant's personal cell phone numbers, and they have mine as well.
So in the case of an emergency, in the case whether it's at your property or surrounding property, you have a point of contact to go to try and keep things safe.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, just with regard to that, to the gas station that you just purchased, does that require a special use?
No, because it was an existing use, so it's a license transfer because the license remained active. It never lapsed. In some cases, if a license goes dormant for 19 months, a prior special use lapses, and then you can't get a business license. We know that's not the case because he was able to obtain a business license on the 13th of February. Had he been denied because of a prior special use condition or limitation, we would have had to go through the process to bring it back in front of you.
Understood.
I just have a question with regard to that location that you purchased on February 13th. There was mention of another LLC. Was there any care and control that overlapped with the prior ownership, or is this completely new ownership that you had nothing?
None
you
in
had no
completely new
involvement with
ownership.
The prior ownership. Okay.
Yeah,
So you had no connection with the prior owner?
none whatsoever.
Okay. Okay,
So,
all right. Are you,
I'm ready to close if you're ready to let me.
are there any questions from the board? Okay. Close it.
Chairman, there are a lot of opinions, there are a lot of allegations, kind of back and forth. I want to be clear, we believe that we've shown a due diligence and a responsibility by the operator by bringing in people, one of which testified or spoke that he was originally against the project. And he saw what actually happened when the building got built, when the business was operating. And he's here today to actually come and support. And that's, in my experience, that's rather rare. A few points that I want to hit before I get into the standards. There was a comment regarding whether or not you live in the neighborhood and have the right to work there. I don't live in Chicago, but I work in Chicago. There's no restriction or legal imposition that you have to live in the neighborhood where the business operates. Even so, you need to be a responsible operator. And attending the CAPS meetings, having a relationship and developing a relationship with the police is what you want a responsible operator to do. 150 calls, it sounds like a lot. It does. I get it. 150 calls, we don't know whether those calls were people calling to complain or whether some of those calls were people, staff members, people who operate the gas station calling the police to offset an emergency. That's part of the issue with some of our competitors. They don't make that call. They don't want the record of 150 calls being made. He does. He takes it. He said it. He testified in front of you. It's a badge of honor. It means that he has a trusted relationship with the police. If something's going beyond something their security team can control, he calls. You're supposed to do that. That's actually in the BACP code. In fact, if there's a incident on your property and you don't call the police, you get a ticket. So we should be encouraging business owners across the city that if something's happening at the property, to call the police. They shouldn't be penalized for that. That's actually showing responsibility, not avoidance. After all of that, we're here for the standards under the zoning code. You heard at length our MAI appraiser's testimony regarding the consistency, compatibility with operating characteristics, with the building scale and design, compliance with the code, provided your board approves the special use. Most importantly, the public convenience and not having a significant adverse impact. Public convenience, a gas station located a block away from the Dan Ryan, 3/4 of a mile from the Chicago Skyway, on a street that has other gas stations. We're not introducing something new that would go above and beyond the conditions that exist there. I would argue bringing in somebody with a responsible operator, an experienced operator, may help raise some of the standards of the nearby stations. With regard to pedestrian safety, we're complying with the city's general direction to have one driveway, not two, on the primary frontages. And if you look at the site plan, those driveways are situated away from the intersection. Why? To promote pedestrian safety and comfort, to avoid potential vehicle conflicts, people coming in or out of the store. That's a standard that applies to all special uses, not just ours. We're complying with it. There are 5 criteria. We are meeting all 5 criteria. We believe that we've shown that we have been a responsible operator. We believe that we have at least won over some of our neighbors who live next to or nearby one of the other gas stations. We humbly request that you or that you approve the special use so that the vacant land can be developed with a new station. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I want to thank the applicant, the supporters, DPD, the alderman, everyone for providing your input on this matter. We will take it under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I move that we convene into closed session pursuant to Section 2C4 of the Open Meetings Act for the purpose of considering the evidence and testimony presented in open session. Commissioner Schiller seconds, Commissioner Staley,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks, Commissioner Soto,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiller. I vote yes, we're in closed session. All right, I move that we return to open session. Commissioner Schiller seconds, Commissioner Staley. Commissioner Brooks. Commissioner Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Schiller. I vote yes, and we're back. We will now vote. Note that any motion to approve a special use will be tied to the recommendations of the department and any additional conditions read by me. First, I move to approve all continuance requests to the dates stated by me. Commissioner Schiller seconds, Commissioner Staley.
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yes.
Commissioner Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Schiller. I vote yes, the continuances are approved. I move to approve all withdrawal requests. Commissioner Schiller seconds, Commissioner Staley.
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yes.
Commissioner Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Schiller. I vote yes, the withdrawal is approved. I move to approve application for calendar number 3525S. Commissioner Schiller seconds, Commissioner Staley.
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yes.
Commissioner Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Schiller. I vote yes, the matter is approved. I move to approve application for calendar numbers 17324S, 17424S, 17524Z, 26624S, and 26724S. Commissioner Schiller seconds, Commissioner Staley.
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yes.
Commissioner Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Schiller. I vote yes, the matters are approved. I move to approve application for calendar numbers 49724S, 49824Z, and 49924Z. Commissioner Schiller seconds, Commissioner Staley.
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yes.
Commissioner Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Schiller. I vote yes, the matters are approved. I move to approve application for calendar number 19523S. Commissioner Schiller seconds, Commissioner Staley.
No.
Commissioner Brooks. Commissioner Soto.
No.
Commissioner Schiller. I vote no, the matter is denied. I move that we adjourn the meeting. Commissioner Schiller seconds, Commissioner Staley.
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yes.
Commissioner Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Schiller. I vote yes, we are adjourned.